Okay. This you have a chair? Want to get a chair? The I have better manners than that. I have better manners than that. Baruch Hashem. So here Lag BaOmer, and the idea of having a get together Lag BaOmer is to mekash ourselves to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai in Meron, and this year, unfortunately, Baba Nisein Rabim, there's a tremendous tragedy in Meron. It's still unfolding as to exactly what the details are. And it's sort of like anyone that's like getting into the mood of Lag BaOmer and connecting to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and you look at the people that are lucky to be fortunate enough to be there itself, and for this to be totally flipped around into a tragic time is it's hard to comprehend. It's like Kilu, like Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is known that K'day Reb Shimon Lismech Olav B'Shas Adchak. Reb Shimon is chusim for everything, for all sorts of Yeshuas and Atzalos in today's day and age. We have over here one of our Talmidim who has a nephew named Shimon, because his sister made haftacha by Reb Shimon's kera that she gets a shidduch in a timely fashion. She'll name her first child Shimon, and people, regularly depend on the schus Reb Shimon. So for this day to have this tragic occurrence, which happened tonight in Meron, is just like it's a little hard. It's very hard to comprehend, and I think the sense of the yantif of Lag BaOmer and the simcha, and which sometimes even has a certain amount of haylelas, and which Sfarim bring down was not frowned upon, because the simcha, the Yom Heilula, was something that was just projected everyone, catapulted everyone to above normal hanhaga, and what normally would be considered haylelas was considered something that was a covered tzaddik and was considered a mailam. But this year it would appear that everyone pe'echad would agree that the lessons of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai have to be examined very seriously. You find that tonight is Haid Shebahaid. The midah of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Weisheit has to do with Haid. Haid, the pasuk in Daniel tells us, Haidi nepach alai lemashchis. This idea is when the midas of Haid is not the way it's meant to be, so then it's nepach, it gets flipped around the mashchis, it becomes destructive. The word Haid, when you switch around the letters, when the Haid is not the way it's when it's not beseder, when the Haid is not the way it's meant to be, so Haid becomes dove. Al zeh haya dove libeinu, alei chashchu einenu. That's when Haid is not correct, it's nepach the mashchis, and it becomes dove, and that's sort of the sense tonight on some level, and it's attacking avodah to rise above it. I guess it's easy for 6,000 miles away to say to rise above it when I'm sure there are 100,000 people that were there that are traumatized, and I'm sure there's millions of people that are in closer proximity that are literally sitting and trembling now. What is this midah of Haid that's so, say, fragile? The midah of Haid is ultimately it's the final leg of avodah. Right? There are five mentioned many times. There are five midas, and Haid is the final stretch of avodas Hashem. Haid is a sense of completion in your avodas Hashem. You're mischased, and you mitzamtzim yourself, and you find balance, and you finally menatzech the Yetzer Hara with netzach, and you come to Haid, and sort of you've arrived. And the midah of Haid is connecting to HaKadosh Baruch with this total sense of gratitude that is beyond sheer, beyond any imagination. When you learn Ramchal Mesilas Yesharim, you notice that every time he starts talking about a Gewaltige Madrega, it's always either preceded by Haid or followed by Haid. By Haidat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Anivus is full of Haid, Chasidus is full of Haidah. You don't start being a Zaris B'chlal until you have Haidat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the midah. That is the midah of Haid. It's just such a basic tachlis. We all know the Ramban tells us that the tachlis of all of Avodas Hashem is to come to gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When there's a chesaron, there's something that's so, which is the ultimate tachlis. When there's a chesaron in this, then it's so. The more central something is, the more tachlis something is. The more it's handicapped. The more it's missing. The greater the pegam, the greater the chorban chas v'shalom. Ultimately, what do we have to be thankful about, and what is it that takes away from our ability to be thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So, a lot of people are very thankful for all sorts of things. Thank Hashem for their health and their wealth and their family and their good looks. And all those things that are very soon going to be not negeya. So you may say, well, let's not be pessimistic. Enjoy it while you have it. But there's something about that's so much deeper than all the things that people think they have to be thankful about. And when people spend their whole lives to attain things that they think they're going to be thankful about, when they get the money, when they get the job, they get the shidduch, they have the children, they get the prestige. And they spend their whole lives after that, running after that, and one day they wake up at 119 years old, and they feel that hiccup coming, right? And they might have missed a boat. They were never really Ma'adas HaKadosh Baruch Hu for anything that has more meaning than plain Pashut Olam Hazeh. Ikar Haid obviously is Pashut a person's relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the greater a person recognizes his relation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more real it becomes to a person, the more real he's activated. The Midas HaHaid, his Haidah. Pnimiyus Bar Yochai, with what he was being megala, was a reality. What was may have been chachma, what may have been philosophical. Pnimiyus Bar Yochai brought it down to lemaisa. Very much l'maisa, to the forefront of Avodas Hashem. That's really what anyone dedicating themselves to learning about Pnimiyus HaTorah and Teres HaSod. Teres HaSod is to really recognize that what's on the surface is just surface, and there's so much more beneath the surface. When a person recognizes the true depth of who he is and how deeply he's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the more he recognizes, the more real it becomes, the more gratitude he has. Right? When it's something that's sort of a philosophical idea, or it's a deep thought, but it's not lemaisa, so that doesn't translate into an emotional sense of Haidat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's La'aniyas Daiti is what the connection between Haid and Haid Shabbat, the tachlis of Haid. When you say Haid Shabbat, it's the tachlis of Haid. Right? Is with Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. That the more you truly appreciate who you are and how connected we are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how literally Yisrael v'Arayis of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Chad, and every machshava that we have literally has the ability to affect Olamais and to connect us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, literally to connect us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the greater our Midas HaHaid is. And the greater we're actually being transformed, because a person that lives in a chitzanistic world, so he's a Moshe Adam and a Behema Ayin, right? You have Behemis are chitzanistic brius, and the person could be very chitzanius. What raises a person out of that world into a totally different world is his Havana, right? The depth of his understanding in everything that is not near La'ayin. And this is what Shir Bar Yochai was doing. Be Megal, all these things that are not Lir Naim Avad, everything that's near La'ayin is important. A person has to do all the mitzvahs, Maisius, but Bechitzonius, but the Pnimiyus brings it to a totally different level. The Gemara tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim to Mekabel Torah. The Gemara is in Masechah Shabbos and Daf Peiches and Midbeis Peites. Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim to Mekabel the Torah, and he got up to Shemayim, and there was some pushback from the celestial beings up there, the Malachim. You're going to give the Torah to Basar Adam, right? They said interesting lashon. What's the lashon that the Malachim said? Huh? Mali l'isha b'neiנו, but they said a pasuk Tana haytcha al hashamayim, right? Give you Tana haytcha al hashamayim, right? You're giving Torah to Klal Yisrael ba'aretz. Torah is hayd. Torah brings about midas hayd. A midah of hayd is so pnimi that has no shaychus to Yilud Isha. Right, Yilud Isha are chitzainis. They're the mice Adam and the Behemayin. They're little, just sophisticated chimpanzees. You're going to give them haytcha Torah, which brings out this midas hayd. Moshe Rabbeinu was meishiv to the malachim what he was meishiv, and he managed to win over the debate, and he was mekabel Torah. On this, the Gemara tells us Alisa lamarim, Shavisa Shavi, Lakach the Matanis Ba'adam. Okay? So Alisa lamarim, Shavisa Shavi, ultimately Moshe Rabbeinu's nitzachon to be Zeicha to Torah and the other things that the Gemara describes he was Zeicha to at that point was described as Alisa lamarim, Shavisa Shavi. Lakach the Matanis Ba'adam. The Arizal tells us Alisa lamarim Shavisa Shevi. What's Shevi? Shevi is Rashi Tevis Shimon Bar Yochai. And ultimately, what Arizal's being megal is that Moshe Rabbeinu's koyach and his greatest bargaining chip that you say we're not right for Torah. No, we have Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Right, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is going to come onto the scene. Right. Alisa lamarim also sounds like Alisa le a little corny. Alisa le miron. Right, Shavisa Shevi.
You have to go up. It's on a
Shavisa Shevi Shim Bar Yochai. I'm sure everything I'm saying is that people, everyone says a very obvious Muslim. Shavisa Shevi Shim Bar Yochai. Lakach the matanos ba'adam. So this is l'chayra. Taichin, what that Arizal is saying is that Torah, the Malachim are right. Mali Yilud Isha b'neiנו, right? Chamud genuza. You're going to give it to Basar Adam. You're going to give such a powerful tool. Which is, what is this powerful tool? When you give it to Basar Adam, they're going to look at it as a code of conduct. They're going to look at it as a social construct, right? This is so much more. You're going to give this, and they're going to look at this as being a some sort of book, some sort of philosophy, some sort of a educational program to get college credits for, and to give a doctorate in biblical studies and to lecture in Yale University Theological Seminary, right? It's bizarre to do such a thing. And Malach were absolutely right. But the answer was that Klal Yisrael is going to come to Madrega where they're going to be differentiated by their Pnimiyus, and that Pnimiyus ultimately is brought out by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. That was his goal, and it's amazing. It's amazing to understand that how could that be that it took that there was chidushim in the development of Klal Yisrael. Kil is what we're saying. There's a development that is going on, continuing to go on in Klal Yisrael. The Klal Yisrael is ultimately being developed into more roi for Torah than the greatest Dairis, and this is l'chayr zeir shver to understand. But in light of what the Arizal told Reb Chaim Vital, that kefi our madrega, kefi the nisonis that we live in, our avodah is as powerful or more powerful than the avodah the Tanoim, because ultimately, right, what gives koyach to avodah, what gives value to avodah, ultimately is the pnimiyus, is the inner struggle. And a person's ratzon and him being mevatel his chitzonius, and just somehow just dedicating himself to a pursuit of Pnimiyus, this is what gives value to Avodah. Arizal told Reb Chaim Vital that back in the day, in the Beis HaMikdash, by the Tanoim, the world was a very pure place. There wasn't so much chitzonius. So it wasn't a very big deal for people to connect to the Pnimiyus. They didn't have to uncover Pnimiyus. It was sitting there, right? The whole world was more Pnimi. Masha Enke now, our Avodah is really to cut through layers and layers and layers of chitzonius. And Memela, our Avodah on one hand is really be megale, the really undoing more Yilud Isha than any other door, because we have Yilud Isha literally obliterating us. All the chesroinus of Yilud Isha, all the taivas of Yilud Isha, all the chayshich of Yilud Isha, which surround us totally. And for us to survive in today's day and age, it's absolutely necessary to work a lot harder and really to uncover Pnimiyus more, because the Pnimiyus is more naturally there. And nowadays, without searching for the Pnimiyus, a person literally will drown so quickly. And this is Ken Zayin why in today's day and age, right? We find that the bikush and the aliyah, and the connection to Lag BaOmer, which back in the day was a very questionable event, until literally the last 100, 200 years it started becoming, and over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, now it's becoming this amazing event, Halei Davrahu. Right? You would think the smaller we get, the less shaykhs we have, but the answer is the smaller we get. If you're going, that means you're making a tremendous effort for Pnimiyus. If you're making a tremendous effort for Pnimiyus, your avodah is something that is really be megala, a sense of Hayta Kadosh Baruch Hu, because you're appreciating the Pnimiyus and you're negating so much chitzonius. The Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is famous. His shita is a pneumistic shita even in Olam Hapshat. In Olam Hapshat, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai holds Dav Shein Miskaven is potter. Malach Shein Tzichel Gufa is Dav Shein Miskaven is mutter. Malach Shein Tzichel Gufa is mutter. Right? He doesn't look at the Maisa. What's your kavanah? Your kavanah is everything, and this is a big yesod in Chassidus also. Where your mind is, as the Baal Shem Tov says, that's where you are. Right? We're sitting here in a basement in Flatbush, right? If our minds are kosher to Miron, right? We're not here, we're there. And that's why this sitting around tonight and making an effort to come out tonight to connect is something that has a gewaltige ma'ila. It's something very real. And you shouldn't downplay your ability to connect, because what's in your mind, where your ratzon is, this is bemis where you are. The understanding of this, I was just trying to picture, right? Let's picture Duvi, right? You find out the Department of Engineering of the United States of America is looking for you. You're wanted for a engineering fiasco. I don't know. They're after you, right? You got to run. You got to hide, right? So your wife quickly packs you a bag, and where should I go? She says, "I found a place. I'm not going to find you. It's a cave in New Mexico." Right, so she sets you on a flight. She has a donkey waiting for you. Take you all 30 miles into Mexico to a cave, and you park yourself over there. Pull out your smartphone, no service. Right, no place to charge it anyway. Right. How long do you got to hang out there for? Well, your lawyer tells you 13 years. Right. Don't worry, someone planted the boxer tree for you, and there's a stream over there. So you don't have to, you don't have to be Samech Al Nes.
I'm allergic to boxers.
What are you gonna do for 13 years? Right? What are Shimon Bar Yochai doing for 13 years? It's like you can picture, like, good morning, Elazar. How are you? Good. How was your day? Fine. So what do you want to do today? Nothing. You know. So they sat and learned, right? So, Elaz, can you get me the Gemara Shabbos? There's no Gemaras here. It hasn't been printed yet, and there's no place in this cave for our Sfarim Shak. Anyway, so what did they do for 13 years, right? I don't know what they did, but if Shimon is a machshavadika person and a Pnimiyus person, the Pnimiyus there's nothing lacking. What's lacking is the chitzonius, right? He doesn't seem to have much of a chitzonius life, right? But a person that is so kosher to Pnimiyus and he's in Hashem's world, he knows what to do, and he did it well for 13 years. And he did it happily, and he came out of Madregas. It's like hard to picture, right? No, I don't know if anyone thinks about it so much.
When he came out, he asked you why they were working on it.
Right. Well, he came out. He was a changed person. He was developed from it. But how? Right. His chitzonius dika world was nothing. Right. But Rab Shimon, as a Pnimiyus dika person, right, and there's no doubt in that time he honed his Pnimiyus, right. His understanding of Pnimiyus. So that is what the inyan l'chayra on some level. Fianias daiti aklusha. This is what we're meant to focus on tonight, and I'll just end off with a story, just to maybe bring out our sense of avodah for this holy day, which is really very much beyond us, but maybe it's within reach on some level. The Kleisenberger Rebbe spent a number of years in the concentration camp in Auschwitz, and he was in a barbed wired fence all around, and outside the fence there was a stream running by, and the Kleisenberger Rebbe used to sit there staring out through the fence, and he'd be bursting with cheshek. If only I could be toivel in that mikveh. If only I could be toivel in that mikveh. Right? He sat there in a concentration camp, and what was he thinking about? If only I could be toivel in that mikveh. Right? That was his whole shiva. Just like, you guys let me out of here. Just for a minute. I'll come right back. Just let me toivel in that mikveh. Right? And I was thinking that, this is us. Right? We're sitting in this concentration camp. Right? It doesn't have barbed wire. I'll say Baruch Hashem. Maybe if it had barbed wire, we'd realize we'd realize it. And we'd work to get out a little bit more. But we're sitting in this concentration camp, surrounded by mechablim that are mechablim, right? Malachi Chabala, Tuma, the worst and the worst. And comes Lag B'Omer, and we see a huge fire. We see a bonfire that goes right to Kisei HaKavod of this tremendous energy of just lifting off, just consuming, just pure oxygen just being consumed, going straight up to the heavens. And we're like locked in over here, but at least we could look from the outside and say, if only we could connect, right? At least we could sit and picture, if only we could connect. And that's really the avodah that Reb Shimon was giving us. The avodah of Ratzon, the avodah of Pnimiyus, and to recognize, people tend to think that, if I'm not going to get it, why have any sheephus for it? I'm just going to be let down. But you don't realize, yes, that's if you want a new car and you're not going to get it, so why bother wanting it? You just drain yourself a cup, because Ratzon for Chitzonius is garnished. Because Ratzon is Pnimi, and you have a Ratzon for Chitzonius, you have nothing. But if your Ratzon is for Pnimiyus, then the Ratzon for the Pnimiyus is the Pnimiyus. That's real. You're connected to it. So even though Halavai, we'd all be able to connect on the highest Madregas and then literally jump into that fire, but we are shackled. But at least in our shackles, we could look at the tremendous beauty, the tremendous avodah, the tremendous connection, the tremendous simcha, and the tremendous haidah, life of gratitude that a person has, and at least have a ratzon. And think about it. What if only we were roy, if only we were tar, if only we had the chachma to connect, halavai we'd be able to. And that ratzon wataka is here a kedibur dami. He mentioned for Chodesh Iyar from the Bnei Yissaschar is that Nisan is a Chodesh of Dibur, and Iyar is a Chodesh of Hirur, and Hirur is kedibur dami. Right? Your machshava is what's a thought process on some level is as if it's l'maisa, and our thought process and our ratzon hatov to be dabek to the or haTorah Haftaris Hashem Pnimiyus Shivas Nafesh, with all the Giluyim that Hashem Baruch Hu brought to this world, Shataka be Oilul Lamaisa, and with this will all be Zeicha to Emesa, to be Moed HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ad Mei Vesem Shana, B'Bias Goyal Tzedek, B'Mheira Agitin.
Amen.